Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. This will be episode 140, coming to you live on July 14th, 2026. There's a lot to discuss tonight. A lot to discuss tonight. A lot happening, even things that I didn't or weren't planning on talking about, should I say, hitting the breaking news airwaves as of just a few hours ago, forcing me to sort of replan out the show and reformat the show. It was originally just going to be some announcements and discussions regarding the Iran war, and then throughout the day I kept seeing all of these news stories emerge. So we've got an immigration enforcement policy update to discuss. The Trump administration, the Department of Homeland Security, mass deportations, major developments with that. Actually, a lot of developments with that I'm going to go over and expose, in all honesty, as well as some news coming out of the Senate tonight. It's possibly good news. So really, what I want to do, this will be the first time doing this. And this is just going to be one of the benefits of showing up early and on time, as you all should strive to do every single night. And of course, when doing so, liking the stream, double tap those phone screens for me, hit the thumbs up button. It's free to do. This will be the benefit of being here on time. I'm going to give you guys the option tonight. What do you want to hear first? Do you want to hear the good news first or the bad news first? And this is going to be the poll. You should be able to see it in chat here, I believe. Yes. So, yes, if you tap on there, you'll be able to pick if you want the good news first or the bad news first. Up to you guys. While we do that, of course, I'm going to give you guys the calls to action. Like the stream, double tap your phone screens, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe for more content, of course, especially if this is not your first time being here. But yeah, please be sure to vote down below. Good news or bad news, let me know, because we've got a lot to go over tonight. There is going to be an Iran war update to cover as well at some point in time during this stream, because major developments are taking place in the Middle East. President Donald Trump and Iran are back at each other's throats, and there are some details here that need to be discussed. So yeah, it's going to be an eventful night. Be sure to vote on that poll down there below. Good news first or bad news first? Also, while you guys are doing that, I want to bring up a couple of things. First of all, though I may have disparaged Senator Lindsey Graham, the sodomite homosexual, well, allegedly, possibly, very likely homosexual Republican gay-ass senator who advocated for Ukraine, war, and loved Israel, and even was quoted as saying, "I will stand with Israel till my dying day." Though I may have disparaged him in death, and rightfully so, because he was a boomercon, neocon piece of shit filth, and I'm glad he's gone, and I hope he's rotting in hell, I will say that Sam Neill passed away, and to him we give full respects to on this channel. Sam Neill, the actor of Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, and I grew up with that movie, so that one hurt. Lindsey Graham, I was jumping for joy over. Sam Neill, not so much. Terrible loss to Hollywood and to movies and cinema. He wound up starring in The Hunt for the Red October as well, I think is the other one. Not many people are as familiar with that. Great book, great movie with Sam Neill in it. And he was in the television show Peaky Blinders. And that was a nice surprise when I actually was watching that show. I was like, oh, that's my boy, Sam Neill right over there. So rest in peace to Sam Neill. Rest in piss to Lindsey Graham. And that's all I've got to say about that. Secondly, while you guys vote on that poll down below, good news first or bad news first? I'll give you guys a few more minutes here to vote on that. I don't know if there's a time limit on it or what, but I do also want to go over one final thing here. David Cooper, as you were mentioning earlier, appreciate you hyping the videos, guys, and this is something that I want to make my loyal viewers aware of here. YouTube has this feature on here that goes beyond just liking videos or commenting on them and subscribing and sharing. There's this new feature called hyping videos. It rolled out a couple of months ago now, and if you really want to support the channel, if you really want to support it, please, as you see, I've begun uploading daily videos on this channel that are more often than not clipped from prior live streams and are appropriate topics fitting for still, currently trending news stories. Every time I do that, and I do that at 6 p.m., every day I strive to have a video uploaded at 6 p.m. If you'd be so kind, as David Cooper's been doing, hype the video. And you can do that in the comments where you would go to normally touch on it for the comments under a video. You can swipe over and it'll say hype. And they're hype points. They're free. It doesn't cost you anything. and it's essentially like super duper liking a video. Basically, I hate that YouTube's done this. I wish it was still just like, subscribe, etc. That should be the algorithm metrics, but they just can't leave well enough alone. And so now the way to really help push content that you like in the algorithm is to hype the video in addition. And it is making a big difference because Dave has gone through and hyped a lot of my videos, and the ones that he has, it literally tells me in my studio, this video received hype points. And as David said, he even got an email saying, one of my videos got into the top 25% of all hyped videos on YouTube, beating out the other 75%. And it is performing better as a result, and it's pushing this content out more, and it's helping more people discover this channel. So if you really do want to support the channel, please figure out how to hype my videos and hype them. That's for people who are actually loyal viewers. For the rest of you, just disregard that, I guess. You guys are pathetic goy scum, as always. But anyways, it's looking like the poll down below has the winning result being good news first, please. I need it. And so that's what we're going to go over. The good news first is what we're going to discuss tonight then. And that has to deal with the Senate. We actually, before I went live, saw some breaking news start to emerge. The Senate has essentially struck down the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act so far. And that's a key word. Well, I'll go into that in a second. But they struck it down today in a vote. And that's the actual good news here. And that's what we're going to get into first. Then you guys have chosen good news first, so we will go over good news first. Of course, like with anything politics-wise, though, it's really not that good news. I kind of tricked you guys. Ha! Joke's on you, goy scum. But it is good news. There's just a major caveat that I'm going to go over towards the end that will remind all of us that even in these moments where we can catch our breath, really, it's not the end-all, be-all, and there's still a lot of work ahead of us. But yes, that's what we'll go over today. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already, double tap your phone screens, and subscribe for more content. Also, wanted to give a shout out real quick. Stop everything. $2 super chat tariff coming in from BeckFan. I do appreciate that a lot. BeckFan77 for the $2. He didn't say anything, just gave me the $2 super chat tariff, and I appreciate that. Here on this channel, that is the standard tariff amount right there to balance out the chat deficit of stupidity. Welcome, Spartacus and Lifeguard. Good to see some moderators are in chat too for law enforcement. And good to see you, Adamonicus. Grimy, good to see you continually coming back. Really appreciate the hyping. Not the hype points on the videos, but the hyping in chat before I went live. I do appreciate that. He says, you're knocking it out of the park every day, and eventually you're going to have a huge audience. The algorithm can't hold you back forever. No, it can't. And together we will rise up against this disgusting, suppressive, censorious algorithm on this platform here that's trying to hold the truth back, which is why you gotta hype the videos and like the stream. Let's get into the good news though, guys, and I do appreciate all of the support from David Cooper and Apex Stay True, etc. Means a lot. Thank you for the jewels, Apex. So the good news. A Senate vote was hitting the airwaves today that they confirming that they struck down and voted against the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act today. Why is this good? And let's first understand exactly what the National Defense Authorization Act is. Because on paper, it doesn't sound like it's good that they shot this down, but there's a lot of things hidden in this NDAA that are a massive potential problem to our nation going forward in the future. What the NDAA is, and it's important you guys understand this so that you can understand how I'm going to break all of this down later. So we'll get into boring details for a few seconds here. Bear with me. But this is an annual bill that is passed every year by Congress, and it is not a bill, like some people think, that directly hands over cash to our U.S. military, but it instead basically categorizes where that money needs to go. And so understand what this is. Now, later on, there will be what's called an appropriations bill that will come down the line where then the money is basically voted on and decided to be handed over to our U.S. military to fulfill what is now the NDAA. And the NDAA is basically like a Santa Claus wish list of our U.S. military. picture like Pete Hegseth sitting on Santa's lap, that is Congress, and saying, I want this, and I need this too, and the Pentagon's broke, so we need this. And then wouldn't it be cool if we had more drones? And I need this too. And by the way, we spent all of our munitions on Iran, and it did nothing, so we need a lot more of that. And that's basically what happens. Basically, it gets written in. It's actually, and it's not Pete Hegseth that writes it, I don't believe. He does basically, they all come together, the military, etc., and they inform Congress what they need. But it is actually the House that winds up writing the bill, as always. And they write it based off of what they recognize our military needs, and it's all segmented out into different categories. So this NDAA is huge. It's full. It's full of all of the military's imaginable needs and the dollar amount specifically that will have to go towards funding each of those needs. And so that's what it is. But here's where it gets problematic. This National Defense Authorization Act, this version of it for 2027, is a bill or act, whatever you want to call it, that essentially goes through the trouble of not just listing out all of our military's desires, but really this version has a treasonous proposal that has been included in it. Now, I already dedicated a good half of an entire live stream, if not more, to this treasonous proposal that's in it, but I'm going to explain it again real quick in brief summary for people who may have not tuned in at that time but are here now watching. And here's in summary what this is, the treasonous proposal. It's Section 224 of the 2027 NDAA. By now I have the numbered section memorized, and so should you. And literally, this section proposes some of the worst, most treasonous proposals I've ever seen. And it all centers around our greatest ally, Israel. Section 224 of the NDAA proposes the deepening, the utmost deepening of ties and integration into our U.S. military via Israel. So it's basically saying, hey, we don't need Israel for anything, but wouldn't it be great if for some reason we just decided to become more dependent on Israel? This is what it is. And it's proposing Israeli tech integration into our U.S. military much more than we already have. It is proposing asinine stuff like AI tech integration and cybersecurity tech integration. And even above and beyond all of that, and I went into a huge laundry list of details in a prior stream, like I said, you should look that up after this one ends and watch it. But above and beyond that, one of the real biggest issues that I had with it was not just the fact that it's literal self-cucking to Israel for no other reason than literally just Israel worship on display from all of the boomer con cucks and neocons who currently are in control of our government. And it goes above and beyond us, literally, it goes above and beyond even the illogical nature of it, because we do not need Israel for anything, by the way. We don't need Israel for anything. They actually, it's mostly in reverse. They actually need us for almost everything. They're totally dependent on us. But it gets worse because, well, it gets worse for two reasons. The first reason, and I explained it in the prior stream, is in that bill, it also proposes that a new position be created in the Pentagon. And this position in the bill, it's written in, would be second in command under the Secretary of War or Defense. It'll technically be called the Secretary of Defense once Trump's out of office, because legally he didn't actually change it to Department of War. He's just saying that's what it's called now. So when he leaves, it'll be the Department of Defense again. So we'll call him the Secretary of Defense if this bill's implemented for the next administration. And it proposes a new position be created in the Pentagon that directly reports to the Department of Defense, and above that, the President himself, bypassing every other position and office in the Pentagon, and it will be the position that Israel essentially holds, or an Israeli representative, etc., in our government. An Israel first politician type candidate, essentially, will hold this position with the sole job in the Pentagon of bypassing offices that inspect for quality control, national security issues, etc. All of the things that if we have another country all of a sudden integrating their technology into our military equipment, nevertheless, not to even understate it, by the way, not just any country, but Israel, the country who literally literally spent, what was it, a decade on that pager incident. They planned it out. They breached the manufacturer and factory. I think it was in Taiwan or China, even maybe, that was producing pagers for all of their Islamic foes in the Middle East, and spent years having those pagers be recreated in the factories with explosive devices in them that could be detonated all at once by the IDF, by Israel, and it was successfully so, and Israel loved it and bragged about it, etc. That's the country that we're now going to allow to integrate their technology into our military. Our soldiers will now be holding equipment with Israeli technology in it. That's first of all. And above that, the position in the Pentagon that they want to appoint will be there to ensure that the offices that inspect these things for quality control, possibly compromising technology, possibly compromised or ineffective, low quality, or otherwise, potentially major issues in our technology, that position in the NDAA that they want, that will be an Israel first position held by an Israel first politician or Israeli operative of some sort, will bypass that office, bypass the offices in the Pentagon that inspect for national security threats, possible national security threats and compromises to it, and fast track the integration of Israeli tech into our U.S. military by also simultaneously, while bypassing the structure of the Pentagon, also simultaneously on the other side working on the intentionally quick construction of new factories built in America that will then receive the Israeli tech and can begin immediately implementing it into all future developed and produced military equipment here in the United States. That's what that position is going to do, as stated in Section 224 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027. And I covered that on the last stream where I went over this and exposed all of it. But that was one of the biggest slaps in the face. And since then, we received another slap in the face as Americans collectively on all of this. Because even after all of this came to light, Benjamin Netanyahu himself, prime minister there over in Israel, couldn't help himself and was publicly bragging in the form of thanking the House committee that passed this up and the House of Representatives for trying to vote on it. He thanked the committee for passing what he called his written legislation. He took credit for it and said publicly that he wrote this. A foreign prime minister from a foreign government and foreign country, who we, yes, call our ally, but no, is not overseeing a colony or territory or state of ours, bragged publicly that, oh, I wrote this. I wrote that. And thank you for passing that up in your government. Thank you for passing the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027 with Section 224 in it, the section that I wrote as Prime Minister of Israel. Because, yes, Goyim, I am now writing part of your legislation as a foreign leader. So that became one of the biggest slaps in the face as well. And he couldn't help himself. He just took credit for it. Stop everything. We do have a super chat tariff from Black Sun here for $10. Okay, you're talking about the other story here. We're going to get into that later. But he says DHS stopping ICE traffics is intriguing. It's plain proof that the Jews are using third worlders to make the West become the third world and are achieving this end via our government. Yes, Dems and Reps both want them. Yeah, I agree. We're going to go over that in a little bit, Black Sun. Thank you for the $10 super chat tariff. Right now, we're focused on the good news, which right now I admit is not sounding like great news, but there is some good news to this. Back on point here. Prime Minister Netanyahu took credit for what was written in Section 224 of the NDAA 2027 and thanked the House committees, the lower level committees, for passing this up. You can see why, and this is what I wanted to point out. You can see why on 60 Minutes, in the interview that he had on 60 Minutes, where he openly called for the $3.8 billion of annual foreign aid to Israel to end over the next 10 years. You can see why now he's doing that. Not only did he call for it back during that 60 Minutes interview a few months ago now, but he actually just mentioned it again the day after Lindsey Graham passed away, as he was obviously commemorating and lionizing Lindsey Graham's entire legacy, just like all the other MAGA cultists out there did, because, all of a sudden Lindsey Graham wasn't some sort of most likely gay, homosexual, not married, no children, no grandchildren, warmongering neocon scum who hated Trump in 2015 and only loved Trump after he was captured by the Zionists, and then worshiped war, Ukraine, and Israel over his own constituents in South Carolina. All of a sudden now, oh, Lindsey Graham was a real fighter. Oh, yeah, wow, what a great man he was. Fucking scum, glad he's in hell burning. But anyways, he was commemorating him, Netanyahu was. Oh, what a firm supporter of Israel he was. We're going to sure miss Lindsey Graham. Wow, this is a tragic loss. He's not lying, by the way. For Israel's sake, yeah, that was a tragic loss. Great for us, though. And while he was commemorating him, he said, the thing that surprised Lindsey Graham was, and and Lindsey Graham said, oh, no, sir, you can't do that. But I told him, no, Lindsey, I'm telling you, we gotta go through with this. Israel has got to get off. We got to wean off the support of U.S. foreign aid to Israel. We're just in a position now where we're not going to need it anymore, Lindsey. And he was telling, this was Netanyahu doing this on television, and Lindsey was saying, oh, no, sir, no, we will defend Israel to our dying days. Oh, no, sir, oh. So he mentioned it again just the other day. And you can see why he's doing it. Because he's trying to trick any of the last remaining gullible American citizens out there when it comes to that, so they can then go on their Twitter accounts that they probably shouldn't have. Like, let's be honest, Twitter should be confined to Facebook, but somehow they find themselves on X and they make it so retarded and gay when they're on there. And so that's why he's doing it. He wants the boomers to then go on and say, oh, it's always the Jews with you people. Oh, it's always the Jews. Now look what you've done. They're not even going to be receiving foreign aid. What are you going to complain about then, huh? What are you going to complain about then? And he's banking on the fact that that'll be the argument then, because they'll listen to his interview for 3 minutes, but they won't sit down for 45 minutes like I have to read the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027, where I can then figure out and connect the dots. Boomers don't have the guts or the stomach to sit through this right now the way that I dish all of this out, this raw truth that can only be handled by intellectually superior beings like yourselves down in chat. And that's why, of course, you should like the stream and subscribe. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you're goy scum. But they can't handle that. And that's what he's banking on. It's just about maintaining the lie as much as possible in recognition that it is all slipping from his grasp. And in doing so, it's really about clenching down the iron fist on America. Oh, we can't keep the American goy liking Israel anymore? Then we'll just clench the iron fist down on them instead and force them to serve and submit to us, because we'll just produce all of their military equipment. And perhaps, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but basing a lot of this off of that pager incident that they brag about, Netanyahu all the time, beat the beepers, we got their beepers, and it was amazing. It blew up the testicles of many of our enemies. They now can't, not only did some of them die from that, but even the ones that lived can't reproduce. It's the best thing we ever did. And yeah, some of them were in public squares, but it's just there's innocent blood that unfortunately gets shed during war. It's one of the costs. The same country that did that, next thing you know, America's on the bad side of Israel, and soldiers are holding equipment that explodes. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you simply can't not think that way based off of the past and history. And so that's all happening, and really, that's the deal. It's, oh, we don't need the $3.8 billion because we'll just be the military, and therefore you'll have to serve us. It's the parasite digging into the host so deep that it can't be extracted anymore. And that's what I've covered in past episodes. But now what we've seen is, and in the past, by the way, too, this is also important to note, and I wanted to cover this. Not only is this NDAA pushing this, but it is also important to understand that this is not a first-time thing. We've already had things passed and written into law in the past when it comes to cooperation agreements that have been formed between the United States and Israel, as it is for shared military technology. So now the argument that I see on X from a lot of the Israel Zionists, they're saying, it's not a merger. This is not a merger. It's not right. You're using the wrong terms. Okay. Oy vey. It's not a merger, and this kind of persecution I'm starting to think is worse than the Holocaust, because it's not a merger and it's always the Jews with you people. Oy vey. It's not a merger. It's nothing that hasn't been done before. That's what they say. And it's just so deceptive as always. It's just such a Jewish way to argue about things, because what they're basically citing is the fact that in the past we've cooperated with Israel to develop some of their tech, like the Iron Dome and Arrow, that Benjamin Netanyahu always takes credit for. It's always Benjamin Netanyahu saying, "Oh, the Iron Dome, it's a beautiful piece of technology. It's why we're the best ally for America. We have the Iron Dome technology. We created that for them." But yes, it is important to recognize that this is not something completely earth-shattering. We have worked in joint development on missile defense systems and other things, other projects militarily speaking with Israel in the past. But the NDAA Section 224 proposal is truly sinister because it literally is Israel seeking a way, like I said, to permanently bind with us. Permanently. Like, no foreign aid needed because you're just going to be everything we need and we're going to control everything we need from you. So just so we understand that. And that's the biggest difference there. The position in the Pentagon that is basically required in the NDAA Section 224 is the giveaway. It's like, hey, we're just going to put somebody in there now that oversees all of this and will report directly to the Secretary of Defense. And if we don't like the way the Secretary of Defense is handling it, then this position has direct access to your president then too. So that's what's happening, and that's why it's the most sinister thing ever. Plus, a foreign government's prime minister writing this in his legislation is also ridiculous, by the way. Absolutely absurd. Should never be allowed to happen. And that leads me to modern day. So, as I said, Netanyahu was already thanking the committee for passing it. That was the House Armed Services Committee back in June, early June. It passed. It passed through it to advance up to the House of Representatives in a vote of 44-12. And now the Senate today, as the news came in while I was preparing to go live, the good news, the actual good news, is that the Senate today just officially shut it down in a vote of 50-46, 50 nays against the NDAA for 2027. The Senate, and I have to emphasize this because it breaks my heart as somebody who wants to be a conservative and instead has to say I'm a reactionary instead, because this disgusting, pathetic GOP party is betraying us and can't get the job done and really has no spine whatsoever. And they're totally owned by Israel worship and their Israel worship religion and Zionism. But it was the Democrats that shut it down. The Democrats possibly just saved America, not the Republicans. And I'm just going to be honest with you. That is what it is. Now, here's where it gets very interesting, though. And here, this is what nobody is reporting right now. I tried to watch some reports on it. I saw Alex Jones, of course, Alex Jones, dude. That guy, he's something else. He's amazing. And he was celebrating. He was like, I want to focus on communism and Marxism as the ultimate enemies. But, Israel, he's like, I don't want to believe Israel's the enemy. But, the past couple of years, it's unbelievable. This Israel. So I was watching him. It was pretty great stuff, honestly. And he's covering it, obviously. But you can tell that a lot of people covering this haven't done all of the research on it yet. And it gets very interesting here because even though the Senate shut down the NDAA for 2027, what's not being reported right now is that really the NDAA that the Senate shut down is not the same NDAA that I was just talking about to you that has Section 224 in it. It's a different National Defense Authorization Act, and people don't know this. So that's where it's going to get interesting here, because here's the history behind this National Defense Authorization Act for 2027. Like I said, it cleared through the House Armed Service Committee in a vote of 44-12, and was passed up to the House of Representatives. This is how the legislation works. A lot of this stuff, especially these spending acts and stuff, there's committees, then the representatives. And the representatives that's the drafting of the legislation typically and whatnot. And, it goes to the representatives. That's the bigger version, the smaller chambers of Congress. And then it moves up to the Senate, the big boys. And then back down to the House and then to the president's desk, typically, or more often than not. That's how this works. And so it passed through the committee, 44-12, goes to the House. But here's where it gets interesting. The House tried to ram this bill through on June 30th. And I saw this report, and I meant to talk about this live, but there's just been so many other things happening that I was yet to have covered it. I even had the article pulled up because I was going to make fun of Speaker Mike Johnson for being a little pussy, and then I wound up Xing off the article. I was like, I'll just never mind. But here's the deal with this: on June 30th, they tried to ram it through. It was the final day that the House of Representatives, led by House Majority Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican, it was the last day they were in session before a recess for July. One of their like dozens of recesses throughout each year, by the way, because apparently our congressmen and women are officially like school children, and they get a vacation seemingly every single month. It is absolutely absurd how many vacation days these schemazes get every single year. Ridiculous. But nevertheless, they had their July recess for a couple of weeks coming up, and on June 30th, their final day in session, Mike Johnson and the Republicans tried to ram this National Defense Authorization Act through, including Section 224. They called it also another big spit in the face to Americans. They called it an early gift to Americans for July 4th and America's 250th birthday. What better of a gift could we want than complete Israeli subjugation? I can't imagine a better gift than cucking for Israel even more and just trying to find new ways to hand them complete control over everything. Thanks, Republicans. Wow. Wow, I definitely can tell I won't be voting for you in the future. And that's what they wanted to do. However, here's where it gets crazy. On June 30th and throughout much of June to begin with, a few dissident Republicans wound up rising up in the House of Representatives and forming a revolt, basing it off of what they referred to as sheer ineffectiveness of leadership and of the Republican controlling body of the House of Representatives, citing that while the Republicans controlled Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate have failed to push forward anything that the American people want. Something to the effect of 4 Republicans did this, and it was more than enough to actually make a difference. 4 Republicans rose up and said, this is not fucking right. You're not passing what Americans actually want. And since they started this revolt, it was actually led primarily by Anna Paulina Luna. They refused to vote to pass the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027 with Section 224 in it. And they were insisting that the sole focus instead should be shifted to the one act that actually has bipartisan support by definition. 94 or 96% of Republicans support this act, but even 70 to 75% of Democrats support it. And that is the Save America Act. It's voter integrity, voter registration, proof of citizenship to be able to participate in our elections. Some Democrats are obviously very hostile to this, but most Democrats even support this. On the lowest end, I've seen 65% support. Typically, I'm seeing 70% support from Democrats even. And so Anna Paulina Luna and the 4 dissident Republicans on June 30th said, no, we will not vote for the National Defense Authorization Act. Some of them may not even support this Iran war to begin with, and this is the process of beginning to fund our military for next year. And they said instead, we will not vote until we have assurances that the Save America Act will make it through. Now, this wound up pissing off Mike Johnson, who, despite the fact, by the way, Mike Johnson is known to be even-keeled, polite. I actually can't stand how soft he is as a human being. And everyone always says he's a very Christian guy, very respectful, very even-keeled and even-tempered. But the reporting was Mike Johnson lost his temper over this and was pissed, which is pretty funny. I wish I could see recordings of it. But apparently he approached Anna Paulina Luna and he told her she was making a huge mistake. And he tried to, if I remember reading the article right, give me some props here. I'm trying to remember an article I read 2 weeks ago now. But if I remember reading the article right, he was trying to argue with Anna Paulina Luna that the problem wasn't even in the House. The problem was in the Senate, which is mostly true, actually. The House has already tried to pass the Save America Act up to the Senate more than once, and it is John Thune, Leader John Thune of the Senate, a Republican traitor, who's basically saying, no, I can't get enough votes for it. Too small of a majority lead. It won't pass. We need 60 votes, which means I have to sell this to several Democrats. It won't pass. And like I stated, this has bipartisan support with Americans. So in and of itself, the fact that this is being held up like this is such a symbolic example of how none of our representatives represent us. If even 70% of Democrats support this when it comes to voters, then John Thune should be able to find easily more than 6 or 7. I think he needs 7 Democrats. Now he actually needs 8 because our boy Lindsey Graham is gone. Oh, he got replaced though. Yeah. Either way, he needs 7. He should be able to find way more than that when it comes to Democrat senators. And in addition to that, the option of nuking the filibuster has been floated around now for an entire year, and John Thune has shot it down every single time because Republicans are so fucking weak and pathetic that they literally will sit there and tell you, we don't want to do that because we're afraid that, and you gotta love this terminology, when Democrats get control back. Like it's an assured thing with them, by the way. They're not even thinking about the future or what they need to do to maintain their power in government. Oh, if we serve the people more, then Democrats won't have control for decades anyway. No, with them it's, well, when Democrats get control again in the near future, they'll nuke the filibuster if we do it. And we don't want to face the hurdles of that coming up. That's their excuse. Now the funny thing is, Democrats have already made it clear that the second they get control of the Senate, they are nuking the fucking filibuster. They've said that that's what they will do. They've promised that they will do it. And despite that, John Thune says, "Well, we can't nuke the filibuster because we don't want to face Democrat retaliation later." It's already a guarantee. So Thune won't nuke the filibuster. He won't sell this Save America Act for voter integrity and registration, for citizenship, proof of citizenship. He won't sell it to the Republicans or the Democrats. And on both sides of the Senate, we are facing a hurdle where some Republicans and almost every Democrat in the Senate opposes it. And so this has been the biggest problem. And Mike Johnson was trying to sell that to Anna Paulina Luna and say, listen, it can't make it through the Senate. The Senate is the problem. But Anna Paulina Luna insisted with the other dissident Republicans, 4 total, I believe, in the House, no, we're not voting for anything then until the Senate cooperates with us and passes the Save America Act. No National Defense Authorization Act for 2027. And that's how that went. Mike Johnson was pissed, and despite this, the Republican rebellion, the dissident Republicans stayed strong. The vote for the NDAA 2027 in the House failed, 198 to 224, and it's known as House Resolution 8800 failed. Mike Johnson shortly thereafter, in defeat, announced the July recess for the House of Representatives, and they left. And that's how that's worked. That brings me to this point here, though. It failed the House. It literally failed the House. The crazy part here is that the House of Representatives only just returned to their session this week, which means there's no way they passed House Resolution 8800, which includes Section 224, in it, up to the Senate. They didn't do it yet. It's still sitting in the House as a failed vote. So what was the Senate voting on then, when it was announced on the news just a few hours ago that they rejected the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027? And here's the deal with this, and here's what you're not going to hear, not yet anyway. You'll hear it all day tomorrow, but all the time here, I'm ahead of the curve always. I'm 10 steps ahead of everybody. It's why you should subscribe right now for more content like this on American Advocates, and like the stream. That's free to do, and it really does help you to push this out to more people. Here's what you haven't heard yet, probably, unless you're very well read and educated on our government. Each year, the House and the Senate each write their own separate versions of the National Defense Authorization Act. The Senate, as it turns out today, was voting on their own version, and this is called S.4784. It is not H.R. 8800, House Resolution 8800. It's Senate 4784, S.4784. This means 2 things, by the way. Section 224 is then therefore still floating around out there. It's still sitting in the House of Representatives right now as a failed vote so far. But it is in the House resolutions version still. So the Senate didn't rule against the House. They didn't strike down the House resolution. They didn't strike down Section 224. They didn't even vote against it. They voted against their own version, and they voted no, 50 to 46. Or 50 to, what is it? Yeah, 50 to 46. Yeah. So that's what that means. Secondly, this means that we now must also inspect the Senate's version, S4784, to see if it now has its own dedicated section to this treasonous idea of Israeli tech integration worded into their version as well. And obviously, here's the spoiler alert for you and why I was late tonight. It does. It literally, yes, the Senate version has its own version as well. Now, here's the section number. Write this down. Section 1217 of S 4784 is the Senate's version of Israeli tech integration into the National Defense Authorization Act of America here. And it's worded very similarly. However, there is a major distinction in it, and that's what I want to go over as well. So, again, be sure to like the stream, subscribe for more. I'm going to take a sip here. Been talking a while. So here's the deal. While House Resolution 8800, Section 224, this is the House of Representatives version of the NDAA, like I explained earlier, creates this new powerful Israeli-type executive agent in the Pentagon reporting directly to the Secretary of Defense and President, basically. The Senate version is a little different on this outlook. The Senate version, according to what I read, and bear in mind with me again, I don't want to be saying that I know 100% certainty yet. I did as much research as I could within like 20 minutes here of reading before going live. But from what I read and remember, Section 1217 basically differs on this, and instead of there being a position in the Pentagon that would report to the Secretary of Defense and the President, the Senate's version basically suggests instead that the Defense Secretary, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War in the Pentagon, instead of working with a newly appointed position in the Pentagon, should instead actually just directly report to Israel's defense minister in the future during the entire process of beginning to integrate Israel tech into our military. This is the key difference here. Essentially, they're both terrible and treasonous, ridiculous, makes me sick. But essentially, the House version wants an entire position for Israel created in the Pentagon that is second most powerful and gets to oversee all of this. The Senate version basically says, no, there's actually no need for that. We should just subjugate our own defense secretary in the future to Israel's defense minister instead. What could be better than appointing a new position in the Pentagon for Israel with almost undeniable amount of authority that can oversee all of this? Well, it would just be better if America's Secretary of Defense in the future instead just reports directly to our Minister of Defense here in Israel. And our Minister of Defense can then instruct your Secretary of Defense on what to do when it comes to your military. And that's the difference here. That's what's in the Senate's version. And so all of that now being known and open and exposed, you're welcome. That is why this is still a major win, truthfully, that the Senate did decide to vote against their own version of this today. And they did vote against it. And that's the good news. Now, here's the caveat that I promised you, because in politics, there is no such thing as good news. It's all bad news. It's all bad news, lifeguard, all of it. You're going to be stressed out from here, and I want to make sure all of you guys go through the worst cortisol spike of your lives tonight, okay? There will be no sleep for me, therefore there will be no sleep for you. Here's the caveat. As I explained earlier, the Democrats may have just saved America. And that's going to be a real clickbaity, catchy headline to use. I'll probably use that in a video clip version of this live stream in a day or two. And you be sure to hype that video when you do. But what you have to understand is, this wasn't denied by the Senate for the right reasons. The Senate didn't shoot this down because of the clear clause in their version, Section 1217, like I said, right? They didn't shoot it down because and say Section 1217 of this is unacceptable. We cannot allow Israeli tech integration into our U.S. military. What for? What do we need that? Why would we cuck to Israel like that when we can produce our own equipment without them? And basically, they're dependent on us. Why would we choose a life of servitude? Why would we choose to subjugate ourselves to Israel, a country that depends on us? Why would we flip the script? Absolutely not. We're shooting this down. That's not why they voted against it. Some of them, to their credit, did express a little bit of grievance with that section, though, which is good. But really, the reason why Senate Democrats, joined by Rand Paul, which is funny, he was the only, to my knowledge, the only Republican that didn't vote in favor of this. Rand Paul didn't vote against it either. This is just sometimes I'm frustrated by Rand Paul, but this is why I actually kind of like the guy. Rand Paul, instead of voting yay or nay, voted present. When when it came to him getting the vote, he put down present. I'm here, basically. I'm here. I'm not voting for this trash. So present. It was yay, yay, nay, nay, and then Rand Paul present. So Rand Paul basically screwed over the Republicans on it a little bit by doing that, but good, because every Republican scumbag in the Senate basically voted in favor of this bullshit. The Democrats unanimously teamed up on this and they voted against it, but for not the right reasons. The reasons why Democrat senators with Rand Paul voted against this was to protest the Iran war, which is also not a bad reason, in all honesty. At this point, we're all tired of the Iran war. This has gone on for way too long. It is ridiculous, and it needs to end. So it's not even a bad reason, in my opinion, sadly. Sad that I have to sit here and agree with Democrats on anything. But, it's not like we're talking about, sodomy or abortions or, any of that bullshit. We're just talking about the war. And right now, most Americans, I think, increasingly so, are against this Iran war bullshit. So, yes, they were protesting Iran war. That's not bad. And like I said, some of them did, as a side gripe, sort of mention that they're not happy with Section 1217, the Israel integration. They said, it doesn't really make sense. Why are we doing this? But it wasn't their focal point. And that's the issue. Because really what you have to understand is the NDAA literally must pass yearly. It's not actually an option to kick the can down the road forever like they try to do with some of these other bills they don't like. It has to pass. It will pass is actually the guarantee. This is not something that's been shut down now for, looks like we're not funding the military for 2027. That's not how that's going to work. And so this will be back, is what you need to understand. And that's why the battle is still on when it comes to all of this for America's future. And really, the battle will be insisting that Section 224 of House Resolution 8800 or Section 1217 of the Senate's version are removed from their respective versions of the National Defense Authorization Act. Otherwise, they're going to inevitably vote on one of these, and if the version is still in it, it will pass. And then right to Trump's desk it goes. And do you think Trump's going to do you think Trump's going to be like, this is unacceptable, I can't believe this. Israel? My beloved Israel? I can't believe this. No, he's not going to care. He'll celebrate it. And so this is not a full victory over any of this. It's actually just more of a pause for now. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Now, there's two more things I want to discuss in regards to this too. This is going to take it even deeper. In addition to this, what we're seeing is huge resistance right now in bipartisan fashion when it comes to Israel. And while they're trying to push for this, I want to emphasize that even more so that the Democrats are not the default good guys on this. They're protesting the Iran war. I support them protesting that. Truthfully, I do. This needs to end, this Iran war bullshit. Trump is such a cuck for Israel, and this war is lingering on for so long that it is going to destroy us. It's going to be so bad. And Trump deserves everything bad coming his way that he has coming, by the way. I'm so done with that guy. He is such a fucking fool. But they're not the default good guys here when it comes to Israel either. And this is really what I wanted to point out as well, because there has been a bipartisan motion in the House correlating alongside this NDAA, led by Ro Khanna, the Democrat who you may have seen in headlines recently was reportedly, allegedly held up at gunpoint by IDF soldiers while in Israel as Ro Khanna flew there. I guess he was trying to investigate what's happening in South Lebanon, and IDF soldiers, who later Israel claimed were just Israeli settlers, but received IDF support later on for their actions against Ro, held Ro Khanna, a U.S. congressman, at gunpoint, laughing about it while they did, according to Ro, making the papers, being denied by Israel somewhat, then being explained away. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, while we still have him since his seat was purchased by Israel, Muriel Madelson's $20 million contribution, record level amount of contribution to a district primary for Congress. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna have teamed up in bipartisan fashion, what I'm trying to say here, to cut over $3 billion of aid to Israel. They're trying to cut that, and they want to include it into the NDAA for 2027. Because the NDAA, like I said, segments out where we spend our military budget funding. So Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie have teamed up to add this in, and it'll basically be sort of a reconciliation of some sorts, where it's like, why are we sending this money to Israel? Let's cut $3 billion of the $3.8 billion of annual aid to Israel. Let's just cut $3 billion of it out. And who's speaking out against this? Is it Speaker Majority Mike Johnson who's saying, oh, it's unacceptable? Those are God's chosen people, I'll have you know. Maybe he is doing that. But no, who I want to actually focus on that's trying to defy this is actually the minority speaker of the House, led by the Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries, aka Timu Obama. And Hakeem Jeffries was super outspoken about this on social media yesterday, promising to ensure that Israel will receive full support and funding from Americans. Oh, just ignore these silly America firsters. Continue to hold them at gunpoint when they visit when they visit Lebanon or your nation, by the way. And also, please continue to take taxpayer money to fund your wars that you drag us into that cost us even more money, while you take the money we give you and cycle it back into our political atmosphere to buy our politicians. We will make sure you get your money, says Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama. Sadly, he probably didn't say it anywhere near as quick as I just did, since he's borderline retarded and literally takes like 15 minutes to say 3 sentences. But that's what I want to point out as well, because Hakeem Jeffries is also saying this, and it's an important reminder that even though the Democrat senators just did a good thing today, and I'll use the headline for future clickbait that they saved America, because that will piss off the little pansy ass little cuck MAGA cultists out there that they're so stupid, and I get a rise off of angering them. So I'll use that as a clickbait headline, no doubt, on a future video. The Democrats just saved America. Why aren't the Republicans doing this? Understand, they're not saving us with the right intention or the completely right intention. Yes, they're protesting the war, and I side with them on that. But no, not nearly as many of them as I'd like are protesting the actual section that is treasonous. The politicians that support these treasonous sections of the House version's NDAA, Section 224, or Section 1217 of the Senate's version, to integrate Israeli technology, foreign technology into our military and turn us into a dependent nation on Israel for our military, should be hung by the neck until dead in the public square by our government. They should receive the death penalty for this, for treason. And if you follow me on this channel for any length of time, you know I'm a big death penalty guy. We need to be imposing the death penalty for more crimes, not less. And treason was one of them. And I can almost guarantee you, without guaranteeing you, that our founding fathers would have already marched on the Capitol and done it themselves, had they been alive to see this shit. So understand that. Now, what I'll wrap this segment up on, which was supposed to be the good news segment, and it is, but just these are the caveats. What I'm going to wrap this segment up on, and I see your $10 super chat there. Give me 1 second, I'll take a look at it, but I'm a bit on a roll here. I'm ending the first segment anyway before we get on to the bad news, and I'll take a look at that super chat, and thank you for it. Here's the deal with this. Here's what I think, and I've seen this one I'm not ahead on. I won't take credit for something that's not mine, but I've seen this reported on a couple of times today, and I agree with it. And it has to deal with Trump's planned speech coming up this Thursday. A lot of people are excited about this. The rumors seem to be circulating and swirling about that Trump is going to be announcing that they may have concrete proof on election fraud from 2020. Democrats are losing their minds over this, of course. Now, if you're, though I don't call myself a Republican anymore in this day and age, certainly I'm not a liberal. And so this is not a surprise to me if this is true. We're going to wait and see. Trump will be announcing it Thursday. And Republicans and the MAGA cultists are very excited about this. We'll see what happens. A lot of Trump's speeches have been nothing burgers. So I'm waiting to see. I'm not getting too excited about anything. And even if the speech goes over well, I don't think I'll emerge from that speech all that excited anyway, because recognize this, and this is almost a stamp of guarantee on this channel from me. Not 100% guarantee, but almost. Even if Trump announces what we think he's going to announce on Thursday, election fraud for 2020, there will not be a single arrest, high caliber arrest made There won't be any meaningful prosecutions or investigations, and no prison time will be delivered to any of the suspects then. So just recognize that. Those deep state arrests that all of the people were excited about last year never came then and aren't coming now. You're not going to get any of them. That's first of all. Second of all, now what I've seen some people float around idea-wise here, and I agree with this, I think it's a high likelihood. Not a prediction here on my part, but I think it's a high likelihood that since the Republicans are having such a hard time passing the Save America Act, despite the fact Trump's already been applying some pressure on them to do so. And now, since it seems like there's at least hints that even the National Defense Authorization Act of next year is going to struggle to pass, some people are speculating that President Trump on Thursday will announce the election fraud. He'll insist it's a matter of national security, and therefore he'll insist that it becomes a joint package deal that is added in. The Save America Act now must be added in to the National Defense Authorization Act for 2027, an act, like I explained earlier, that must be passed. It's not an option. But it's also an act that will come with what? Section 224, Israeli tech integration and more control for Israel, or Section 1217 if it's the Senate's version. So that's what people are predicting, and I think that is a very likely prediction to come true, which means that we really have a huge uphill battle coming here, and it's another slap in the face to Americans who actually do want majority, even with Democrats siding in on this majority-wise, citizens to only be able to vote in our elections, and actually do want voter election integrity and security. But now we'll have to watch as our representatives get to say we passed this for the people, we funded the military and passed the Save America Act, all while not so secretly they're also voting to cuck our entire country to Israel just to make our elections a little more fair and our military a little more funded. It's absolutely disgusting if it's true, but I sadly can't disagree with that analysis that I've been seeing today. And that's what I wanted to go over for that first segment. Be sure to like the stream right now. Double tap your phone screens, you useless goy. Don't be so useless. Like the stream. It's the least you could do. You're not going to hear reporting like this anywhere else on YouTube. Nowhere else. Nowhere. Nothing is better than this show right now. So like the stream and subscribe for more content like that. We're going to go over the bad news now. Believe it or not, that was the good news. And it's all good because the Senate shot it down. So we get to breathe. The good news is we get to breathe for a moment. Sorry that it can't be better, but that's the current that's the current state of our American political landscape. We now, and then back to work. Everything's bad. Everything's downhill from here. But before I do that, I want to go over that super chat tariff that came in from Starch Manning. You're new here. I don't recognize that, but it's a $10 super chat tariff, and I do appreciate that a lot. And he says, give me 1 second, actually. He says, the revolving villain in the Democrat Party, Lieberman, parliamentarian, Manchin, Fetterman. It's Fetterman, almost like it's designed to almost work, but not. Is the DSA capable of changing it? I hope so. Well, you may not be on the right channel if you're a DSA guy, but on this channel, I've covered why the DSA is rising and why the Republicans deserve to watch the DSA rise under their watch, because the Republicans are utterly failing. Despite having complete control of everything, they're completely failing. Now, Manchin, not a huge fan of. The parliamentarian, not a fan either. Fetterman, I'm also not a fan of. I know a lot of Republicans are a fan of Fetterman, but I've always been pissed that the Republicans seem to jizz in their pants every single time a Democrat sides with them. And then they're like, oh boy, put Fetterman on Fox News a lot. Let's get a Democrat on there. So yeah, I can at least agree with you on that. I don't really like any of those names. Hey, Mike Hunt. Mike Hunt. Good to see you back here too. I recognize your name, so, and I appreciate that. And thank you for the $10 super chat tariff. All right. Now, let's get into the bad news. The bad news. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot of it today. So, the good news is the Democrats saved America temporarily, even if not for the right reasons. The bad news is Those mass deportations that I've been telling you are over. I've been saying that on this channel since January, maybe even before January, if memory serves correctly. And all of the MAGA cultists, they couldn't bear to hear it. You don't know what you're talking about. Trump's got a plan, and he's playing 4D chess with the liberals. And really, what this is about is making sure that they don't know that he's deporting them, but secretly he is. Of course, at the time, and still to this day, I would argue, well, they have complete control of the government, so why do they need to hide anything? I don't understand that. And then, of course, they never have a good argument for that. Why hide what you're doing when you have control of the government again? But now we know, once again, that I am, as always, right and vindicated. I've been telling you on this channel all year long, and maybe even as early as late last year, that the mass deportations agenda and campaign was coming to an end. That Trump was literally surrendering to Democrats and tacoing out on mass deportations. And the amount of resistance I was met with at the time was astronomically absurd. Here's the news today. The Secretary of Homeland Security, the newly appointed one, after they got rid of Kristi Noem, it almost makes you wish she was back, because it seems like, I hate to say this, it seems like the DHS was actually more effective under her, despite the fact that she made a huge cardinal sin by deciding to spend the same amount of money in hundreds of millions of dollars that was spent on creating the first Avengers movie in 2012. She decided to take that same amount of money and spend it on 3 commercials where she's dolled up as a cowgirl outside of Mount Rushmore on a horse, telling illegal aliens to go home. Because apparently, she then argued in a Senate hearing, apparently those commercials were very effective for self-deportations. They saw Kristi Noem, a 130-pound woman who's like 58 years old, on a horse in front of Mount Rushmore telling them to go home, and they were just shaking in their boots and said, that's it, we've got to leave America. Apparently that's the story, and Kristi Noem got fucking fired for that by Trump, and rightfully so. What a ridiculous waste of taxpayer dollars. She spent like $240 million on that fucking commercial. But what I will say is, up until that point, it actually seemed like we were getting a little bit more of what we wanted, at least. Though already they were winding it down, so maybe it would have played out the same anyway. Because now under Markwayne Mullin, the newly appointed Secretary of Homeland Security, the news came out today that he has now instructed ICE to halt conducting all vehicle traffic stops when it comes to searching the vehicles for illegal aliens in the United States. And we're seeing the same tired pattern now play out again that we saw earlier this year when I went live and said, that's it, this is the sure sign that mass deportations are over with. We saw it with Tim Walz in Minnesota. Now here's the deal with this. And what we saw up in Minnesota, if you don't remember, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, the 2 idiotic white people that literally threw themselves in harm's way to martyr themselves for Somalians, who, by the way, and I point this out all the time, the white people with their suicidal empathy is sickening. They did this to martyr themselves for Somalians who come here. Later on, then, of course, the stories emerged that not only were the Somalians victims of being deported, but Alex Preddy and Renee Good, 2 white Americans, martyr themselves for the Somalians. Nobody mourns their death because it was some fat white gay woman who was married to like an abusive woman who abused her own child. And then Alex Preddy, a nurse who was later recorded spitting on ICE officers. And if you're in the medical industry, you know how dangerous spit can be. I know it sounds crazy to say, but this guy swore the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm and then was spitting on ICE officers. So they're both dead. They're retards. Glad they're gone. We celebrate it. They're gone. And the Somalians do what? Well, after they're dead, do the Somalians take to the streets and riot or protest and hold up pictures of Alex Preddy and Renee Good and say, oh, these beloved Americans, I can't believe they were shot? No, not at all. The Somalians, they can't even be bothered. No mention was made of Renee Goodrout's pretty. No mourning in the Somalian community up there in Minnesota. Nothing. In fact, the news reports that come out just a few weeks later, funny enough, indicates that the Somalians are defrauding Whitey up in Minnesota in the form of billions of dollars with their Quality Leering Center. And now we know there were two Quality Leering Centers, separate owners who didn't know each other, making the same 65 IQ, surprise, surprise, spelling mistake. And what happens after all of that? Well, nothing. But that all happens, and as a result of those two deaths receiving nationwide attention, the liberals, of course, jumping all over it, using it to create and manufacture essentially their own version of a color revolution. And by color revolution, I'm not talking about race. That's just the term color revolution. You're deliberately setting up potential violent circumstances to create violence, and then weaponizing the violence to wage war, so you can use the war to win and get the result you want. This is what the Democrats have done with this, and they're so good at it. I am so jealous as a reactionary and as a want to be conservative of how incredibly smart and strategic the Democrat Party is. They truly are the superior party here in America, and it's not even close. It's not even close. The Republicans are so pathetic, and above all else, weakness is what I actually despise the most. And that is why I despise this Republican Party. And I have fantasies in my dreams about watching them be persecuted by the Democrats after midterms this year when it's a blue wave. I want to see this Republican Party destroyed. I want to see the politicians prosecuted endlessly, being dragged before House committees, prosecuted in courts, thrown in prison. I want to watch Trump impeached. I want it all, baby. I want this destroyed. They are so ineffective, it disgusts me. But the Democrats are so good at it. They're too good at it, really. And that's what we saw up in Minnesota. We saw two white people martyr themselves for a community that didn't care about them, and ultimately was proven later on to wind up being responsible for defrauding the very people who martyred themselves for them. This is liberalism, but it's also America, and it's what America looks like when you don't have a powerful executive and when you don't have strong Republican leadership with an actual spine. So what we saw was immediately after this took place, Trump cooked to the demands of Tim Walz. Governor Tim Walz wound up hijacking his own state, insisting that ICE and the National Guard leave the state. He denied ICE access to the prisons and jails so that they couldn't continue rounding up the arrested illegal aliens in this country. And we saw Trump cook to it. We saw Trump make a couple of threats like he always does, and then back down a couple weeks later. And ultimately, we saw him pull Greg Bovino, the commander at large of Border Patrol up in Minnesota. He pulled Greg Bovino out, sent him to his home in Los Angeles, later forced him to retire, and basically fired him. We then saw, of course, like I said, Minnesota was later found to be hiding billions of dollars in Somalian fraud. Nothing was really done about that. Few low-level Somalian fraudsters were arrested. Tim Walz is still governor. He's doing fine. He's not in prison. We then saw over 80%, or maybe it was 85% of ICE agents yanked out of the state of Minnesota by the Trump administration. And now only several total agents remain in the state on call to basically show up at jails and arrest the illegal aliens and to take the arrested illegal aliens from the jails that Tim Walz now has allowed them access to again since Trump yielded to him. And they show up and they take the illegal aliens arrested and they pull them out and then they deport them. Well, they go through the process then, but that's it. That's what happened in Minnesota. No door-to-door, no traffic stops take place up there really. No more stakeouts like we were seeing at the beginning. Nothing. It's done. It's just done. And that's what I reported on earlier. And I said, hey, just so you know, this is the sign right here that these deportations are done with. And now what we're seeing with this story is now it's a nationwide decision. While it was being confined to those Great Lakes states, it seems like, because I think Wisconsin and Michigan were problematic too, definitely Minnesota. It was confined up there. It seemed like a big loss for the Trump administration. It looked pitiful. Tim Walz looked triumphant. But now it's nationwide. Because now it's the Secretary of Homeland Security himself, Markwayne Mullin, the newly appointed one, who's now ordering this. This is a Department of Homeland Security command to all ICE agents nationwide. Stop conducting vehicle traffic stops. And it's happening as a result of just like the pattern repeating, like I said, 2 more deaths that occurred as a result of ICE immigration traffic stops. This is an article from ABC News. It says ICE to temp. Here's the word, ICE to temporarily, and I do emphasize that, temporarily halt conducting vehicle stops, sources say. It says U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has been ordered to temporarily stop conducting vehicle stops in the wake of 2 deadly shootings in Texas and Maine, sources told ABC News. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin gave the directive, a law enforcement source told ABC News, after he spoke with Senator Susan Collins, a Republican in Maine, who said she urged Mullin to cease all non-urgent vehicle stops. In an email sent to ICE deportation officers, a senior ICE official wrote that the vehicle stops are paused immediately, according to the email received by ABC News. All personnel are instructed to prioritize other existing operational methods outside of vehicle stops to conduct immigration enforcement activities, the official wrote. In most cases, ICE officers will stop a target on the street once they leave their house or office, but ICE will stop using vehicle stops in cases involving most dangerous targets, according to a source. Multiple sources said the pause is temporary and that ICE officers will receive new training on vehicle stops. And so once again, what are we seeing here? This may seem like it's temporary, like they're saying, but this is a complete backtracking of the Trump administration on mass deportations once again. And what we're seeing when it comes to all of this, the backtracking, is that they don't gain the ground back. They only just lose it. They're halting everything nationwide now when it comes to immigration. Midterms were the excuse back then, by the way, for the whole Minnesota thing. This is going to look bad for midterms. We're going to get destroyed in midterms if we don't stop doing this. And the Trump administration fires Greg Bovino, sends in Tom Homan as PR control, and boom, next thing you know, almost all of the ICE agents in Minnesota are out of the state. The National Guard is pulled, and that's it. That's it. And now the midterms are definitely the excuse again, as we're much closer to them than we were back in January when they made that first decision. Here's the other thing with this. When it comes to the midterms and immigration and Trump, history is literally going to repeat itself. And I warned about this back in January, and I'm going to warn about it again, because we're seeing the same patterns of history play out with Trump as we saw in his first term as well. We saw the scandal, and many people remember that from Trump's first term back in 2017. The whole children in cages scandal. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, especially for most people who are normies and not as educated on this, the children in cages thing started under Obama. This was being pointed out back then, but like back then, and even like now, sadly as well, the Republicans always lose control of the mainstream media narrative to Democrats. They lose to Democrats always, is the real message here. Always. They are the inferior party and Democrats are superior. And so back then, they lost the mainstream media narrative. They could have just easily explained it and said, well, Obama started the process, we're just keeping it going. But by the time they did that, it was too late. It had already been leaked, the pictures of the kids in the cages, and nobody cared that Obama did it. They said, well, this is just wrong. And that ultimately, along with the Families Separation Act that we saw in Trump's first term, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if you remember, was like vehemently, I think, the outspoken critics of it or whatever, or, you know, the Democrats in general, if I remember right, were talking about this. Family Separation Act, kids in cages, and Trump is being informed internally in his administration in 2017. You can't keep doing this. The Republicans will get creamed in the midterms in 2018 if you do. We've got to stop this. And what Trump ultimately wound up doing back then was halting most of his immigration reform policies, deportations, etc., to try to save the image of everything and allow the GOP to get control or maintain control, more control of, I should say, for the 2018 midterms. And how did that work out for them? Well, it didn't. The Democrats took control in the midterms, and they wound up coming after Trump and grinding his administration to a halt. And it got so bad that Trump never really regained the lost ground that he gave up willingly before the midterms. He didn't regain it back after. The border wall didn't get finished being built, and the mass deportations not only never happened, but in Trump's last year in office, last full year in office, 2020, I believe it was, we actually had one of the worst border crossing years in recent history, including of those that Obama was president of and George Bush. We had one of the worst years, and Trump was in office for the full year when that was happening. All because he initially made the weak decision to voluntarily stop his own promise and agenda in the name of being afraid of midterms and afraid of Democrat retaliation. And now it's happening again. It's happening right now. It happened in January and it's happening today. And when they use the words temporary, and when they say, well, we're going to train the ICE officers to conduct traffic stops better, just recognize that what that really means is we're going to dwindle this concept down of ICE traffic stops to the point of where there's only a few qualified ICE agents across the nation that we consider worthy of conducting them. Everyone else will just have to go forward not conducting traffic stops, which is a large method of finding illegal immigrants in this country and deporting them. There will be no reclaiming of lost ground on this. They've given that up to now. That's what's happening here. And not only has the mass deportation agenda failed, but this administration now has willfully sunk it again. They shot the bow of they shot the ship. They shot a hole through their own ship. They're sinking it themselves. They've surrendered to the Democrats, who don't even control anything. The Democrats don't control the courts, the Supreme Courts. They don't control the House, the Senate, or the executive. They don't control anything. And the Republicans said, you know what? We should just surrender to them anyway. They don't like this, and we've got to stop then. Now, that courtesy is never given to the Republicans when Democrats are in control, but that's what's happening right now. Think about it like this, by the way. Where are the protests for all of the deportations for ICE? Remember how we saw those protests last summer? There's all these protests in the streets over this. It was nationwide news. We're in summer right now. We're in the same kind of summer atmosphere. Los Angeles, you get all the Mexicans up there with their stupid fucking flags, and they should be going out in the streets, burning cities over this, right? Like they were doing last year over all of it. Well, where are those right now when it's hot as hell in the summertime? Tempers would flare more naturally then, and the weather's nice enough so that they're comfortable destroying our cities from within while refusing to go back to their country. Scum. Where are those protests? They're not actually really happening. And the reason why they're not happening is because the mass deportations aren't happening. Because the Democrats already won. They defeated the Trump administration as a minority power, and they've stopped all of it. The protests would only possibly spike Trump at this point, to the point where maybe Trump would lean into it. And so they don't do them, because they don't need them. And with actions like this being reported today, this just confirms even more that the deportations aren't happening, and that they're winding it down. Time to close that chapter of the Trump administration. We made it all of 7 or 8 months, and that's the deal here. They'll float around a bunch of estimates. They love this term self-deportation. You know, we had 1.5 million self-deportations last year. My ass. No, didn't you see that Kristi Noem commercial? They were terrified of her. They just left. My fucking ass. They were scared of a wannabe cowgirl on a horse in front of Mount Rushmore. Okay. 1.5 million of them went home. Wow, yeah. Why would they have done that when clearly they could have just hid for another 9 months and stayed? Now they can just drive around too. You feel free to drive back to keep driving now on our city streets to work, occupying the jobs that should be American ones. You're not getting pulled over by ICE. So why did they leave? If 1.5 million of them did leave, they're the biggest idiots in the world. They should have just hid. This is all going to end anyway. And so they're going to say self-deportations are the biggest number. You can't track those. People just go back across the border. How do you know? You can't even track those. You can estimate them. They're going to obviously really want to estimate them favorably. So they say 1.5 million. It wasn't anywhere close to that, though. Then the math also here adds up to, in my opinion, what will likely average out to be about 300,000 actual deportations happening per year under Trump, if he keeps this pace going. And we need, I think the bare minimum I would accept would be 1.25 million per year, 1.25 million a year. That would be like the bare minimum. And I'd probably express frustrations at how it wasn't higher, but I would tolerate it. Truthfully, we really need like 5 million deportations a year. but we're only getting about 300,000 a year. And how do you know I'm telling you the truth on this? Well, here's the deal. Here's some more news for you that I'm gonna put right in front of you right now. Besides the fact that you can sort of track the internal removals on the DHS website, which they, funny enough, stopped updating late last year, and I had to wait forever for the final accounting of numbers. But you can track it on the website. And the internal removals is the number and the category you want to focus on for actual numbers, not turnarounds. They always, oh, we had so many turnarounds are not deportations. Turnarounds are not deportations. And neither is self-deporting because you can't track it. So internal removals. Also, besides the fact that there's this other article out today where one of the ICE officials, a senior ICE official, was anonymously criticizing the Trump administration by basically saying, the reason why these traffic incidents are getting so violent is because they're demanding 2,000 arrests per day. 2,000 arrests per day sounds like a lot until you do the math on that and realize that that literally adds up to 300,000 a year. And that's if all of them get deported, and some of them don't because the judges don't order it. Because sometimes the paperwork isn't as out of date as it showed or as they thought when they arrested them. But that's what it adds up to. That's the perfect math. 2,000 arrests times 365. So there's that. Here's the other thing, and this is more news that came in recently, I believe just the other day. Or it got expanded on, because I already covered this news a while ago, but there's more news about it. Alligator Alcatraz was denied funding and forced to close. We celebrated Alligator Alcatraz on this channel. I think it's a wonderful compound, and there should be dozens of them built across America, for now at least. But Alligator Alcatraz was denied funding. It didn't get funded. Ron DeSantis had to close it as a result. And now not only closed, but they've removed all of the signage that they'd put up that was basically, along the county roads leading to it. There's no more signs on the building, on the roads, anything. The sign, it's all gone. So they're done with it. Like, it's over with. And in addition to that news, there were 12 other similar style illegal alien detention centers built similarly to Alligator Alcatraz across America. And some of the news I saw today was that 7 out of those 12 have also now been ordered similarly to close. Probably for good, like Alligator Alcatraz. So that's what's happening right now. And really, all of this is happening. Trump is backtracking, tacoing out of the agenda, blaming midterms, and saying we gotta win the midterms, and we can't have these ICE agents pulling over people, turning into traffic incidents where they die. Meanwhile, he's fully prepared to keep this war up with Iran, which could lead us to a literal depression if this continues. And he doesn't give a damn that midterms are going to be affected by it. This is the tragic irony here. And really, the other thing that I want to talk about real quick too is, if we're being honest, I don't think really Americans actually have the desire, courage, or stomach for what would be needed to be done. As I explained many months ago when Alex Preddy and Renee Good died, this is always how it's going to play out. If you actually want to restore America, and if you actually want to deport the illegal aliens that don't belong here, you have to recognize the sheer volume of them that exist and what it means to be playing a numbers game. If there are, in fact, 50 million, and that some think the number's lower, like 20, some think the number's higher, like 100, I've heard. I don't think it's quite 100 million. I do think it's probably closer to 50 million, maybe a little more, though. It's a lot. It's a lot of illegal aliens in this country. A lot of people need to be remigrated back to their countries. I believe that, and I want that to happen. I want America to be for Americans, heritage Americans. If you believe that, though, then you have to recognize the pacing per year has to be extraordinary to achieve that. Like I said, at least 5 million a year with just Trump would accomplish a lot more. At 20 million total by the time his term's over, that would put a massive dent into all of this. But recognize what that means if you're talking about that level of volume. 20 million people being dealt with. You're going to have violent people. You're going to have desperate people. You're going to have violent and desperate people who don't want to leave America and will do anything it takes to not leave. So this was always going to happen. And if they were actually carrying these out at the size and volume needed, we would be seeing stories like this 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day. So really, it also just points to the fact that we don't see these stories that much points to the fact that they're not actually deporting nearly as many as they want you to think right there. But in addition to that, This is what Americans are not really prepared for. And largely it's the women. It's largely the women. Like Susan Collins, the Republican up in Maine, is the one reaching out to ICE saying, please stop conducting traffic stops. They get a little too violent. I've done a past episode on a Sunday about how women leadership is always a biblical curse from God over a nation. That's just one more example how. But it's really the women, and then it's a lot of the liberals in general. Most liberals, they don't support it to begin with, and therefore they can't stand what they see when it comes to this. Some Mexican here who came here 5 years ago and refused to leave now is dead. To them, that's tragic. To me, it's just one more opening in our society for an American. And it doesn't matter to me how they're deported or how they leave this country, in a body bag or in the back of a van, alive and with their family. Does not matter to me. They're not my people and they're not my problem. I want them gone. And now what we're seeing right here with President Donald Trump, the same mistakes of the past being repeated, complete and utter weakness, and a complete shift in priority from Trump, as he's clearly bought and paid for and captured in many different ways, most likely, with Zionists, because now he's focused on Iran. And his entire being is essentially in the Middle East now. And that really does lead me to the final segment for today, the Iran war update that I want to go over with you guys. I'm going to keep this one short today, but there are a few things to discuss. Trump cleared 3 days. He cleared 3 days. He cleared 3 days from his scheduling. And for what? Did he clear it to sit down with his cabinet and go, guys, we've got to strategize about this mass deportations thing. How do we do this for Americans so we can ramp up the amount of people we're deporting so we can reclaim our own lands from these third world savages? No, he didn't clear a schedule for that. Did he clear it to figure out a new game plan for tariffs, since he's not implementing them correctly and the courts keep shooting it down? No. Did he clear his schedule so he could sit down with his cabinet, with his Secretary of Commerce and Treasury, and say, Scott, Howard, what do we do about the cost of living for Americans? Kevin Warsh, come on in here, newly appointed, and already appointing an Indian woman. Already appointing an Indian woman, the Xbox CEO. Good for you. Come on in. How do we fix this cost of living situation for Americans? It's getting bad. No, he didn't do that either. Hey, how do we figure out, Bill Pulte, how do we figure out this housing market situation for the youth who are literally priced out of the housing market, can't afford a home? No, he didn't clear a schedule for that either. He cleared it for Israel and Iran. And that's where our president's head is at entirely, as we approach midterms, while this war erodes the global economy, the U.S. economy, and solves nothing and makes everything worse for us. They hate us, American advocates, says David Cooper. I think they do. I think most politicians, even some of the good ones, I think, wind up running, and eventually I think they wind up despising us. Any of us who have actual standards for our politicians always get despised. I get despised, no doubt. I would be despised, no doubt, from a Susie Wiles if she ever saw this channel. She would hate that I'm talking like this about the Trump administration. She would hate it. She would probably confiscate Trump's phone and click on my channel using it to block me, to ensure that Trump could never possibly ever doom scroll and accidentally stumble across this, however unlikely that would be. Like, they can't stand that when you have standards. In addition to that, you're also hated by the people that are the toe the party line idiots. So I get the hate in chat from the people who literally voted for the same president that I did. And that's really, you almost become like a man without a country. But we're going to get into this. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. Double tap your phone screens, hit the thumbs up button. That's free to do, and it really does help encourage the YouTube algorithm to push this content out to more people. Also, subscribe if you're enjoying the show thus far. I go live pretty much every single night. I wind up usually finding a way to take at least one day off because I just need it. Yesterday, the heat was killing me too. It's that I love the summer. I can't stand the winter, however mild it may be or however cold it gets depending on the year. I love the summer, but some days it's like, okay, all right, I get it. It's summer. It's 97. My God, and I'm outside working a lot. So yesterday I took off because that heat was killer, and I just didn't feel like talking about Iran. And I'm glad I waited because now we have all this stuff to talk about. So. But yeah, the algorithm will punish me sometimes for missing a day and not being a workhorse goyim and going live every day. So like the stream and help a brother out, guy out. Help an American advocate out. Share this with your friends. Subscribe. Become a member today if you really like the content. But let's talk about this. Let's keep this short, but let's talk about Iran here. This is what I've been able to track and really keep track of for you guys here. I'll summarize it real quick like this. Predictably, and it won't. This is what's great about watching my show all the time. Lifeguard. Predictably, we are back at war with Iran. We're back. This is war. Like, this is war. There's no way around it. And so, though the Iran War Cost Tracker website that I was using back in the day, it might feel a little nostalgic for some of you guys to say it, they're not tracking it anymore. But we are, if my numbers were correct here before going live, this is day 136 of the Iran war. Can you believe it? I can't believe it. Actually, I can believe it. I predicted that this would be the case. I said that we were going to be stuck in the Middle East for much longer, by the way, much longer than 3 or 4 days, what we were originally told, then extended to like 7, then 3 weeks, and then remember, this was the real one. This is the real Willy Wonka golden ticket. Trump was then saying, well, it'll take about 4 to 6 weeks, but we're really thinking that, we're opening the window for the Iranian people, the good Iranian people. We're opening the window for them to rise up. Their time is now. Overthrow your government and take control. We love the Persians. How quickly has all of that changed to now Trump saying, we're going to blow up their electrical grid and we'll destroy their bridges. They won't be able to travel anywhere, and we will strike their power plants and take out their electricity that powers their hospitals and everything else. And we're going to destroy Iran. We will destroy them, possibly with the mother of all bombs. We'll just annihilate them and turn them to glass. So much for caring about the Iranian people. Rise up now, Iranian people. Oh, wait, never mind. You don't want to do that? Fuck you, then. We'll just destroy you and everything. You won't be able to cross bridges. You won't have electricity. We'll target your desalination. We're going to make sure that your quality of life is gone, and maybe you die from it. Fuck all of you. That's how this is gone. Day 136 of the Iran war. It's not a war. It is a war. It's a 47-year-long war. No, it's not a war, actually. It's just a Middle East conflict. Is it still a conflict, I would ask the MAGA cultist, by the way. Is this still just a conflict? What is this at this point? Does anyone know how to define it? Seems like the definition of a lot of things has actually changed over the course of all of this. Terms like ceasefire. I used to be really assured in what the term ceasefire meant. I used to hear that and go, oh, thank God. Thank God. They've stopped shooting at each other. But since covering this war, I've been enlightened to the reality that a ceasefire actually means just shooting less, according to Trump. Well, in that part of the world, it just means just a little bit less firing. That's how they do things over there. I'm not even saying that to make fun of Trump. He's actually kind of right. But we're also kind of to blame for that sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know anymore what war means. Conflict, excursion, ceasefire, and here we are. The U.S. has been bombing Iran now for over 72 hours straight. That's what makes me think that the war is really back on, because the last time we did that was back in March, back in the first week of March. So we've been bombing them. We reportedly did actually, this is what Iran's been threatening to do, and why it's been so important that America didn't restart this war, because Iran threatened that if they get hit severely enough, that they will start going scorched earth again and target all of our Middle East Gulf allies and target their oil infrastructure, liquid natural gas fields, desalination plants, etc., which will destroy the Middle East for like a decade. And if that does happen, then I hate to talk out of my ass on it, but it's like if they destroy the Middle East like that, then production comes to a grinding halt in many countries all at once in the Middle East that are largely responsible for a lot of global trade and oil, and the global economy could wind up hitting a depression. There's sadly, not to take any solace in this, because you can't. There's more than one road that we could go down, or that Iran could take us down, depending, that could lead to a global depression that would affect the U.S. economy horrendously so, and possibly lead us to a depression. But nevertheless, there we are, and we, according to reports I saw, we hit another island. It's Kish Island, and we hit a desalination plant there, and it's one of Iran's. So we've targeted their drinking water now, which is very interesting because Iran had been threatening to do that to our allies in the region. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Did we hit that by accident? Is the question. I'm not really sure. But that's interesting. Now, here's what's most important to understand in all of this. Speaking of drinking water, suck on this one, Iranians. Here's what's most interesting about this, and what's most important to focus on, in my opinion. Iran's parliament yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, voted to withdraw their country from the Memorandum of Understanding. They insisted that the MOU is dead and it means absolutely nothing because the United States and Donald Trump keep violating it. So they have voted unanimously, pretty much, as a parliament in Iran to withdraw from the MOU, and they've claimed that it is now entirely dead, as the U.S. has been bombing them for 72 hours straight. And so, really, this is war, then, right? Both sides are acknowledging it now. The ceasefires that I've always called reload periods are just reload periods. We are reloaded, we are firing again, and they are firing back, and we are at war, and there is no memorandum of understanding, and the ceasefire is over with. This is where we're at. Since then, Trump has reinstated his naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, and I pointed this out on Twitter. I saw David Cooper saw my tweet and liked it. You guys should go follow me on Twitter, by the way. I'll give you a link to that right now, actually. I should have that pulled up and ready to go. At American_Advo. Go follow me on Twitter. I do post content that's unique on there. And not everything I post on there do I wind up discussing live. But I did post this on my Twitter, and I said, it blows my mind. Actually, let me nothing better than reading your own tweet like an egomaniac on stream. Let me just read my own tweet, because I worded it so perfectly there. I posted a picture of the Strait of Hormuz on Twitter, and I literally said this July 13th when Trump announced the naval blockade was being reinstated. And I literally said this. I said, it still blows my mind that Iran will announce the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And like we've covered, Iran has it blockaded from the tip of Oman here all the way up pretty much to Larik Island there. They have it mined, and that's their blockade. It's mined. So ships are really playing roulette by trying to pass through this because they could trigger a mine, trip a mine, and blow themselves up. And the intention, obviously, is for Iran to generate control of the strait by doing this and forcing the ships to come up in between Keshem Island here and Larik Island, where they have their Iran Port Authority tolling booths being set up to charge fees for passage in the future. And then from there, they make the voyage down over Larik Island and out of the strait into the Gulf of Oman. That's the actual plan for Iran. Now, the mines are already there. What they do then as a result is, with the mines being there and with us not being able to really remove them, and now obviously with Iran refusing to remove the mines, it's closed from here to here, which means they can either hug the shore of Oman, which Trump has been having them do because it's their sovereign waters. 2 miles out from shore, up to, is sovereign water, not international. So Oman owns that. And so Trump's been having them hug the shore to bypass the MOU agreement that gives Iran control of the strait. But otherwise, their only option is to do this, which also allows Iran to close the strait down in a moment's notice. That's the other idea here. And this is what Iran would do in the future and will do if they keep control. Not only will they profit off of it, but they'll be able to close it down a lot quicker, and they will do that. The IRGC acts like a mafia, and they're the ones overseeing operations in the Strait of Hormuz predominantly. And anytime Iran doesn't get their way geopolitically in the future, if Iran is left with control of the strait, they will shut it down. They have learned how powerful this is, and it really does allow them to control the global economy and bring it to its knees anytime they do it. So they've recognized that this is like a golden ticket for them to emerge as a fourth global player, as I predicted they would as a result of this war. And that's like a promise. That's something that they will do. Now, what's funny is, because they can shut it down so quickly, they obviously announced again that they were shutting it down this week, and they did. What blows my mind is Trump will then say, oh yeah? Well, we're putting our naval blockade at the other end of it, near the Gulf of Oman and near the exit there. We're putting our other blockade too, then. Our U.S. naval blockade is there, and now the Strait of Hormuz is, what does Trump say? He says it's open. I'm not kidding you. Iran says it's closed. They have it mined, and they're controlling the region of passage, basically. And where Trump's trying to sneak them out, Iran has demonstrated that they have the ability to strike the ships successfully. And we've seen that time and time again. And most potently, and most recently, we saw it just last week, where they hit the ship, started it on fire, destroyed its engine room, and a crew member went missing. And the ship is now on fire, sitting in the Gulf, barely floating. So they control the strait, and we have done nothing to stop them from taking control of the strait, and we don't have a good answer to stop them from taking control of the strait. So they announce that it's closed, and then Trump spitefully puts his blockade. Just again, another word here. The theme of this updated segment here is logic and how it's just not present with anything America does in the region. Ceasefire doesn't mean ceasefire. War doesn't mean war. Excursion doesn't mean excursion. And blockade apparently doesn't mean blockade, because when Trump announces that his blockade is up, he follows that by saying Iran is lying, our blockade is back, but the Strait of Hormuz is open. And so that's what I said on Twitter. I said it still blows my mind that Iran will announce the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and Trump will respond by using our U.S. military navy to set up a blockade on the strait and then announce that the Strait of Hormuz is open as a result. It's literally illogical. But this is where we're at. And though it's sheer madness, it's funny that I mentioned in my other update on Iran the irony of all of this. And this is a talking point I don't see too many channels making. The irony is that neither Iran or the United States recognized the UN clause treaty agreement to begin with that literally advocates for international waters to remain open and free. And so the best part about this, the funniest, most tragically ironic part about all of this is that Iran doesn't even believe in the idea of international waters. They never signed, well, and here's the deal. Iran did sign the UN clause. I actually got this 25% wrong on my last stream where I mentioned it. As it turns out, Iran did sign the UN clause treaty agreement at the United Nations for international waters. They signed it in December of 1982. But here's the deal. They never ratified it. And so they don't recognize it. They never pass it into law in their country. They don't recognize it, and therefore their signature is null and void on it. When it comes to the United States, we never signed it at all. Our signature can't be found on it. So we don't technically recognize international maritime and sea law for free passage. We are the enforcers of that. And that's how we're recognized by the UN as the enforcers. I've done the whole episode on the Pax Americana, etc. And that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the enforcers. Meanwhile, Iran doesn't recognize it anyway. They're not even a part of it. So we're all fighting now we're fighting a war now against Iran as Americans that Trump got us into, that Trump started, that was originally about nukes, or so we were told. Then it was about regime change, which was quickly changed to Persian liberation, and then back to nukes. They couldn't figure out what to sell us on. So the narrative kept bouncing. And then Iran, as I've been explaining, has been playing masterful 5D chess against Trump, and they've, in multiple ways, shifted the focus of this war onto Israel and the United States' actions and onto the Strait of Hormuz. That is all that's being talked about now, and the ridiculous irony in all of it is that neither Iran or the United States even recognize international sea law to begin with. So we're trying to tell Iran you can't control the Strait of Hormuz because it violates international law, but Iran doesn't believe in it, and neither do we. And that's where we're at on this right now. And so because of this, and here's where it gets even more ironic. This is some of the latest news as well. We're telling Iran they can't charge a toll for it and can't control it. And now that Trump has imposed his naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz again, and he's declaring that under the blockade, which blocks, it's in the word blockade, he says it's open. It's already ridiculous folly as it is and sheer madness, but he says it's open. Pass through anyway. And then he goes on to say, after after Marco Rubio and Trump and Hegseth and all of them have said Iran cannot do this, they can't control the Strait of Hormuz, and they definitely can't charge a toll for it, that is just crazy. After that's been the now narrative in the Trump administration for 2 months, Trump now reimposes the blockade, bombs Iran 3 days in a row, and then says, you know what? For our troubles, we're now going to begin charging a 20% fee from all ships exiting and entering the Strait of Hormuz in the future. We're going to become the guardian angels of the Strait of Hormuz, he says, first of all. Which means, by the way, what does that mean, by the way? That means we're there forever. Just so you understand that. The nature of forever wars should be so apparent right now. We're there forever if he upholds that. The guardian angels of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, are we going to move the entire country of Iran and shift its tectonic plates until it's not bordering the strait then? Because if we can't do that, then we have to be there forever to be the guardian angels. And even then, we haven't been really all that effective. As I just mentioned, there have been dozens of ships now taken out by the IRGC, despite our president being there. But we're going to be the guardian angels. I guess that means we'll be floating above and watching these ships be struck by the IRGC and then moral fagging about it to the American people on our media sources and using that to justify a future war. I guess that's probably what that has to mean at this point. But so we're going to be the guardian angel. That means we're taking control of it, which is not really how the UN clause is set up. But then again, we're not a signature of it, and neither is Iran. So I guess it's fair. It's just a little hypocritical since we're telling Iran they can't do that. But we're the guardian angels, and now Trump says we're going to charge a 20% fee for passage. Even though literally we're saying Iran can't charge a fee. That is ridiculous. It's immoral. It violates the international law. It's despicable. We'll never allow Iran to charge a fee for the Strait of Hormuz. And then Trump says, these ships are too cowardly and they need to use our services to leave. We should charge a fee. It's like very inconvenient. 20% fee. He called it a maintenance fee for our trouble, which is what Iran was wording it as in the Memorandum of Understanding. They called it an environmental protection fee and a maintenance fee and everything else. And so you can see just how ridiculous this is. And what's even funnier about it is Iran then took to social media to roast Trump for this by agreeing with him. They said, oh yeah, it really does take a lot of work. And they said, and really it is a maintenance fee. You're absolutely right, Mr. President. That's why Iran will charge a fee for safe passage when we control the Strait of Hormuz. Thanks for recognizing that. They then went on to say, but 20% is a criminal amount to charge. We can't believe that America and Trump would ever recommend such a criminal amount. That is usury. And then they said, Iran will be a lot more fair about it when we charge a fee. Obviously, since then, the Trump administration has already begun walking back this idea of charging a fee, so it doesn't look like we're going to do that. But that's all part of the latest update here. And really, all of this is to point out here, we're bombing them, they're bombing us, we're back at war. There's no plan in any of this. Everything that's happening and everything that's really been happening has been purely reactive. Purely. Really, even going back to the start of this war. Back on February 28th, there may have been a little bit of prior planning to it, but if you remember how it even started, we go there at Israel's behest, and when we arrive, and we're now vulnerable in the shores of the Gulf, in the Persian Gulf, we're vulnerable with our navy there, Iran could strike us at any time. Israel is the one that then notifies us that Israel is going to strike Iran. And they do this to manipulate us and force us to act. So even then, we were already reacting. Not to Iran at the time, but to Israel, being ridiculous and maniacal. Because, of course, when it comes to the United States, we can't be seen as weak. We can't be struck first. We don't want that. 9/11 happened, terrible. We want to always be in the position to strike first. So it forced Trump and the military to strike Iran and bomb them February 28th. Because otherwise, Israel said, if you don't do it, we're doing it. So everything since then has been purely reactive. And that's how you know there's no plan. If you're just reacting, then you're playing defense and you're not even playing good defense. You don't have a plan for defense even. You're just reacting. That is the surest sign that you're going to lose. Every time as a chess player, every time I have found myself running out of time and reacting to the opponent's move and incapable under the pressure at the moment of being able to try to pre-plan my own offensive maneuvers to come back, surprise, surprise, I lose the game. And this is where Trump's at. Time is up, oil's out, economy is crumbling, midterms are coming, and he's just reacting. It's over with. And there is no plan, and Trump has decided instead to go back to doing what we've already done to Iran. All of this has been done. We've bombed Iran for 3 days in a row now. We already did that. We bombed them for an entire week back in March, February 28th through March. We bombed them for a week or more, actually. I think we bombed them more than that. It didn't work. Iran is not defeated. They didn't surrender. They rebuilt what we destroyed mostly, and they still have control of the Strait of Hormuz. No agreement for nukes, and now they're saying the MOU is done, and they've withdrawn from it. And Trump's only response to that possible is, we will just bomb them more, which expends more of our munitions and solves nothing. It didn't succeed back in March. It won't succeed now either. Now, the other update is Yemen has joined in as well, and they struck Saudi Arabia. And really, this points you to the next move. It's what I've referred to as another ace in the hole, ace pocket in the back pocket of Iran here. And I was worried about it back then, and I was worried about it recently again, as the Yemeni Houthis struck Israel a couple weeks ago or months ago now. And now they're striking Saudi Arabia, which tells me that there may be a plan, actual plan, not from us, but from Iran here, who's allied with the Houthis, to shut down Bab el-Mandeb and the Red Sea. And when that happens, we lose access to more trade, more oil, more resources. The global economy spirals down further, and it once again is another way, another road towards a Great Depression, at least globally, but probably economically here in America as well, over time. Iran also has vowed to extend their tyrannical reach and control over the Gulf of Oman beyond the Strait of Hormuz. And now they will start striking tankers and cargo ships in the Gulf of Oman as well. There's also talks that Fujairah, which they've successfully hit in the past with drones, could be, and that this is the United Arab Emirates one of their oil production facilities, could be a target by Iran as well. And oil's almost out. We are here right now. Bombing from the skies is the only answer from Trump. Iran is increasing, and they're dancing up the escalation ladder. And Trump can't. There's only like 2 or 3 ways Trump can escalate this, and none of them are good. Bombing from the skies is not a solution. And the fact that it's the same thing, we are in Groundhog Day, if you've ever seen the movie right now. And it is ridiculous. It's actually getting frustrating because the definition of insanity literally is trying the same thing over and over again and trying the same thing over again and getting different results. The definition of insanity. And that's what we're watching now. It is the same plan that's failed before and will fail again, and it's happening still. So that will leave Trump with only really three solutions are left. I did a great episode a long time ago about what Trump's options were in all of this. The Memorandum of Understanding was essentially the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action 2.0, and I mentioned how that would have been the best possible outcome, truthfully. Until, of course, I saw the MOU, and then I realized, actually, no. I Trump was going to be able to work out a better deal than that. That was a literal surrender document to Iran from the U.S. It was terrible. In some ways, it's actually almost good that they've withdrawn from that. But that was what I said would have been the best case scenario. And then I said the worst case scenario would be nuking Iran, because that shatters the last global taboo in existence here. And it would be once again the U.S. doing it. We already nuked Japan during the World Wars. That's done with. We should seek to never do that again, and every country should. And the first country that does it will set the new standard for other countries to consider doing it in the future. So it's actually, in my opinion, very important we don't do that. That's the worst option by far. The second worst option, which gives nuking Iran a run for its money, is boots on the ground full-scale war. And really, if Trump gets tired of playing the insanity game of trying the airstrikes from above and the naval strikes from the sea and not getting the result that he wants, because Iran's not going to surrender, we're losing to geography. I want people to understand this. We're losing to geography. That's the thing. It's not that our military's not strong. We are losing to geography, okay? We're losing to zealots, religion, and geography. These are hardliners, dedicated to their country and their religion, more importantly, and they have the geography that makes them impervious to attacks. We would need boots on the ground to overcome that, possibly. And it would be bloody and costly with no guarantee of success. And in my opinion, based off of our prior performances in the Middle East, where we also have not been successful at all ever, we would definitely lose with Iran, which is much bigger of a country. Just being real with you. We have military power. We are a superpower. But we have limits to our power that are being discovered now through unforced errors by Trump and through really just stupid decisions, lack of planning, and really a lack of awareness of who the Iranian people are, what they stand for, and the geography, the literal geography. This is like the equivalent of this story that I heard earlier today. I was watching this. I stumbled across this channel today, and I thought, wow, that is so appropriate. I can't remember the name of the channel. It's a lieutenant colonel. He's a lieutenant colonel, and I saw he was live, and I was like, oh, he's got some good insight, I bet. Let me look it up. Daniel Davis. Highly recommend checking out that channel. Because unlike me, he actually has a lot more credentials to talk about this stuff. I feel like I've been mostly right about stuff, but he's Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. I was watching his show, and he had this guy on, and he just made the most accurate analogy possible in all of this. He said it's like the story of the boat and the lighthouse, and it's the perfect analogy for the U.S. and Iran. We have the big, powerful boats and Navy. It's the most powerful Navy in the world, and I'm proud of it as an American. We have an incredible Air Force. But in the story of the boat and the lighthouse, the boat is sailing on the seas. And I didn't look up the story, but I can already surmise what it is. Maybe I'll give my own version of it. The boat is sailing on the seas. It's a big, powerful boat, unstoppable. And it sees a light in the distance in the same lane as it. And it's the big, powerful boat, and it says, no way we're moving for what's coming towards us here. That light is it's heading right for us. We're going to radio to that and tell them, get out of our way. We're big and bad, we're powerful, we're the biggest ship by far. We know this. It needs to get out of our way. We're not switching lanes for it. It can move around us. So they radio the light. What's coming from the light, they radio it, and they say, this is blah, 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 the U.S. American, let's say. This is U.S. American. Get out of our way. We're coming towards you. Move over. I don't know the technical terminology, but get out of our way. Clear the way. We're coming through. We're this and this vessel of a boat. Clear the way right now. They get a radio respondent. They get a radio back, and it says, "Oh, hey, this is a lighthouse. This is a lighthouse. Actually, we recommend not continuing on your path. We can't actually get out of your way. Please slow your course and turn around now." And the boat says, no, get out of our way. We don't care. Nothing stands in our way. Well, how do you think that ends? And that I heard that, and I was like, that's exactly right. It's not that we're not a big, powerful military. It's that the geography of Iran has already been a problem for great empires in the past. If you could ask Alexander the Great. He'd tell you too. And so it is geography largely. And I've been talking about that at length on this channel for months. It's true. So that's what we're losing to, and that's why the missile strikes from the air and from the sea, they're not going to work. The bombing runs don't work. They have the mountains. And what we do wind up destroying, they rebuild pretty quickly. In fact, I saw something, a report today. We destroyed one of Iran's bridges, and it was repaired. It was literally repaired, I think, within a week or less. China's been coming in and helping fund it. So they've been coming in and helping repair the infrastructure we take out. And that's what's happening here. So, Trump's only options then would be to nuke Iran or I've heard the mother of all bombs, the Moab, being talked about too. Another terrible idea. Some people think the Moabs are potentially a dud or wouldn't be as effective either and would be embarrassing for us. But that's an option. Boots on the ground is the other option. If Trump really wants war with them and wants to be effective, he would have to at least try boots on the ground, which means full-scale war for years. That's a multi-year commitment. Or the other option that I've talked about, I put out the video clip from my prior live stream, why Trump should walk away. Because the MOU was already embarrassing. I thought he'd come up with a better deal. I thought there was at least a chance he would. And that 14-point MOU was embarrassing for Trump and for the United States. So embarrassing that in truth, when I put out that video and that stream and I said Trump should walk away, it's because he would actually be better off doing that. Rather than giving them $300 billion in real estate investment deals, lifting sanctions and secondary sanctions, unfreezing assets, paying them just to sign the MOU, and allowing them control of the Strait of Hormuz, he could have just walked away. And the only thing that's a guarantee then is they control the Strait of Hormuz, because they're going to do that one way or another, unless we do boots on the ground and commit to a full war and try to control the region. Then maybe we can stop them, and for who knows how long. Maybe, and that's a big maybe. So walking away is the other option now. The MOU is off the table. Will Trump try for a better deal? He could try, but Iran at this point, I don't think they're going to want it. I think they're going to just toss it aside, and they're going to say, no more deals. No more deals. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Why would they agree to another deal? They don't work. Trump ripped up the JCPOA, and then he violated this memorandum of understanding so many times that it took the Iranian parliament reconvening after a recess. They came back together and they voted to withdraw from it while they had been being bombed already for 3 days when the MOU was technically supposed to be in effect. So no, I think the deal era is over with. Cross it off the list. It's done. The only options left are boots on the ground, war, nukes, or MOABs, or withdrawing from the region entirely and just leaving. And maybe that's what this is about. Maybe this final bombing run campaign is a way to make it at least seem like there's a symbolic win. Trump can tell the MAGA cultists who aren't well read on this and don't pay as much of attention to this as we do on this channel, like the stream and subscribe, of course, if that's you. Keep coming back. Otherwise, get off the stream. We don't even need you here, you goy scum. But most MAGA's not as informed. Trump could bomb them into oblivion for the next 12 days or something, and then say, that's it. There's nothing left of Iran anyway. That's it. It's over with. And that'll be it. MAGA, I can imagine, I won't say the names, but I'll go on Twitter and I'll see the MAGA cultist reporters, independent reporters. Trump sure showed them, and, whatever. And they'll take control of the Strait, Iran will, but it is what it is. Maybe that's what Trump's trying to do, but at the same time using terms like guardian angel of the Strait of Hormuz and imposing the naval blockade again and bombing them for 3 days and even floating the idea of charging a fee doesn't tell me that Trump's mind is on leaving the region. So who knows anymore. That's where we're at on that. That's your Iran war update. By the way, stop everything. Paint Code, one of my members here. Good to see you back here, man. Thanks for the $9.99 super chat tariff to help balance out the chat deficit of stupidity. And he says, here's my 9.99% tariff. I mean, my fee for the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, exactly. The Strait of Hormuz. We're stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. Thank you for that. I appreciate that a lot, Paint Code. Thanks for being here as always, too. I appreciate you. We have limited MOABs anyway, says David Cooper. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can kind of see how Trump could justify in his mind using one on Iran, though. They have become quite the problem for us. But can't emphasize it enough. It's kind of a problem we created. Alexander, don't surf. We only hurt the freedom fighters. They're still being executed, says Michael Cox. Yeah, see, I don't know. It has to come from them. The whole regime change angle has to come from the people. It can't be initiated from another country. That's literally not how it works. I mentioned this before. It's like, and I know some people will argue that a lot of liberals are deranged. You won't get any pushback from me. I think a lot of liberals would find a lot of joy in something like this happening. But I think even now, with how divided we are, I think there's a bulk of moderate Democrats and centrists and libertarians combined with Republicans and conservatives in general who would be outraged if the script was flipped. If Iran had come and they had destroyed the White House, killed Trump, killed J.D. Vance, killed Pete Hegseth in the bombing, killed all of Trump's entire family, his grandkids. If all of these people died from a strike from Iran on our own soil, the White House was destroyed, and it had to be like Speaker Mike Johnson who had to come in and fill in as president. Almost all of the nation, aside from the most extreme vile liberals, I think, would rise up in unison and be like, okay, well, fuck Iran. We're going to turn them into an actual parking lot now. It's a rally around the flag thing. We wouldn't be like, yeah, like, I'm so critical of Trump right now that I wouldn't even mind seeing him be impeached possibly next year by Democrats. I really wouldn't. But if another country came here and blew him up, I'd be so outraged. I would want the country to literally be wiped off the map. And it's no different in Iran. That's what we did to them. We killed their entire government, their government officials' families. We bombed a school by accident and killed 107 schoolgirls. Average age of them was like 7. We killed their holy leader. And then we're like, now's the time, Persians. You must be so thrilled we're destroying your country and killed all of your leaders and your religious leader. Now's the time. Rise up with us and overthrow your government. Well, yeah, that fell on deaf ears, as it turns out. In fact, it was the opposite effect. They were in the streets to support the regime. And we saw that at the funeral for Ali Khamenei. The entire country poured out into the streets for the funeral, and we're chanting death to America. And then we go, the horrors, I can't believe this. Why ever would they chant death to America? We only bombed them 14,000 times and threatened to destroy their electrical plants. And we've taken out a desalination plant for their drinking water now, and we blew up their bridges. I can't believe they would chant death to America. That is unbelievable. Surely we must destroy them now. Anthony Thompson, 8751. Look at this little soy. Who is this guy? Is this guy feeling like a woman today? Did you chop your pee off, Anthony? You getting a little hormonal on me in my chat? Fuck. Let me read it in his voice too. Fuck anybody that sends money to your punk ass. All you do is spew lies. You a bitch. All I've ever done is be 100% right. You should kneel before your leader and then your God. Anthony Thompson, embrace me, as Xerxes would say in 300. Embrace me as your leader and as your God. I've been almost completely right about all of this. That's why people are actually here, Anthony. Who are you, though, Anthony Thompson? Fuck you and anybody who sends you money to your punk ass. You should literally send your money to me, Anthony Thompson. Stop paying for the transgender hookers and send your money to an actual good cause. Me! Michael Cox says this war is to change the narrative. Trump has done nothing for the common man. Nothing. Not for lack of trying, though, to be fair. Trump has tried a few things, but either tacoed out on it, didn't follow through, or it failed. And it doesn't, where we're at now, it's just like, this is it. This is it. This is what our government's focused on right now, just so you guys know. This is it. The Jews love that. They love it. They don't want our government focused on us. That's not what hundreds of millions of Jewish donor money goes towards. Immigration, they don't care about that. They actually like that. It goes towards this. This is exactly where they like our government focusing on. And you can see how it's problematic. It does take away from the focus. This becomes all-consuming. It's a crisis. Trump clears his schedule for 3 days. That means no talking about immigration policy, possible Doge or fraud, no talking about cost of living, none of it. It's 3 days cleared schedule for this. Lalo's Dope says, I believe the majority of the U.S. are moderate. This is why the Republican is a majority now. DNC are so far left, they aren't living in reality. I agree with you on that. I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, Joe Rogan's a great example of that. He was always a center-left guy. I kind of always liked Joe Rogan's podcast, but I was very aware that he was not a conservative, Rogan. But what we saw from him, and increasingly so, he's become like kind of a little more religious even. Like that's how bad the Democrat Party has gotten, is Joe Rogan's looked at that and basically been like, maybe I should start going to church, and I kind of am considering voting Republican here. Like that's really where our political landscape's at. And the left hates Rogan now, which doesn't help. It's like they should try to win him back, because he's Joe Rogan and he's the number one podcaster, or always in the top 5 these days. Even if he hit his peak a few years ago, he's still a top 5 guy, and he's a house name now. And they're like, fuck him. Oh. And why? Because he's a white guy that's super muscular. Well, he's a small white guy, but he's jacked. He's a fighter type MMA guy, commentator for a blood sport. He shoots guns, he hunts, and he talks about stuff openly. And you can't have that in the Liberal Party, which is, they were always going to hate Rogan for that. But Rogan at his core has always been a center leftist, and more recently has decided, upon watching the left shift, he's more recently decided to ask, he asks a lot more about Jesus on his podcast, and talks about going to church again, and then voted for Trump and endorsed him. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Survive says, what the fuck has Iran done to us? The rhetoric's convinced you of that. Iran has been going to topple. You're not hearing what I'm saying, Survive. Survive. If you were actually listening, you wouldn't have wasted all of the time with your fat thumbs burning those precious calories that keep you at a gross 350-pound body weight, because I agree with you. You fucking idiot. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Going to topple us for the last 50 years, only doing it for the Zio-ethno-fascists. Well, I agree with the Zio part of that. What's wrong with the other 2 words? Anthony's hormone replacement therapy isn't doing well. Yeah, and I'm not really sponsored by like a TRT company on this channel, so I have no sponsorship link that I can provide Anthony for his TRT. Sorry, Anthony. You'll have to Google that for yourself. Rogan sold his soul. This guy's just here to be op. Survive just wants to be an op. Survive has long, hard days at work, and he's like, I can't wait to scroll vertical lives on YouTube and just be a contrarian in chat. It's how I blow off steam. 40% of U.S. Jews are against the Zionist movement. Okay, now he wants to defend them. Yeah, I can't. This is one of those, you can't cast pearls to swine. I don't cast my pearls to swine. Paintcoat says, I swear most Jews in the U.S. are a large Democrat voting bloc. No, you're completely right. Over 70% of them voted for Kamala. I think it's always usually 80%. And that was what was actually significant about Kamala, was she managed to lose Jewish support, because it's like 80% always vote Democrat. And that should tell the Democrats what is wrong with them to begin with, because you'll see this all the time. Not to go off on another rant, but I'll keep it short. It's the Democrat. I just got a comment on one of my videos. As usual, the Democrats are ahead of the game, which sadly I agree with. On Israel, he says, which sadly I kind of agree with. But again, they don't understand that they're not against Israel for the right reasons. They view Israel as like this like white colonizer country that's colonizing the poor brown Pakistanis or I'm sorry, not Pakistanis, Palestinians, and the Gazans, and oh, I can't believe this, they're colonizers, and it reminds me of this horrendous U.S. history I had to read about those poor Native Americans. We should give all the land back to them. Now Israel's doing it again, and America supports it, and I can't stand Israel. That's not the right reason. That's not why I'm against Israel. I'm against Israel because Zionism is pathetic. I'm against Israel because I don't believe in the Greater Israel Project. And I'm against them because of their foreign money influence in our politics, which the majority of, up until, well, even right now, but that'll change, the majority of went to Democrat politicians. 56% of their funding in AIPAC goes to Democrat politicians, and 80% of Jews vote for Democrats. Why do you think that is? It's because the Democrats like their open borders, and they love all of the liberal social stuff like transgenderism and the LGBTQ movement, and the Democrats push for all of it. Abortion. Israel prides itself on all of that. Israel just hosted their own LGBTQ movement in the Dead Sea, right near where Sodom and Gomorrah historically used to stand. They're mocking God. Israel prides itself in being an abortion nation. Israel Israel loves the idea of open borders for all European countries. They consider us an extension of that. And they hate Europe because Rome went up into Europe, and Rome is what destroyed their second temple. So they despise us. And so all of these policies, these liberal social values, it's always the Jews that love that. They come here and vote for it in droves, 80%, and Israel supports all of that agenda. Now, immigration, they don't support open borders in Israel, mind you. They hate that because they are an ethno-nationalist country. But everything else they support there. And it's just the German Weimar period's playing out again here in America, or in Europe in general, for that matter. The 1920s German Weimar periods. Look that up. Jews were overrepresented then. We saw the transgenderism stuff spread like a sickness then. And we saw the LGBTQ stuff spread like a sickness then. It's always a sign of God cursing a nation, too. But yeah, we saw it all. And that's the whole thing. So the Democrats, they think they're on the right side, but they don't have the right reasons down. And without the right intent, you're not actually on the right side. Lifeguard says it only takes 45 seconds to form an opinion on the entire channel for these geniuses popping in. Well, they are the Goyim. The longer you do this, the more you realize that the Jews are absolutely right about the Goyim. They are the Goyim. That is that is just true. They've got that part figured out. They are the Goy. They are the Goy, and really, if we're being honest, let's just allow ourselves a temporary moment of black-pilledness and say they deserve to be subjugated. I'm fighting for us to not have to endure that. The AI surveillance state, the Israeli integration into our military tech, the funding, the usury. But they deserve it. You all deserve subjugation, you scum. You Goy scum, inferior intellectual beings were made to be ruled over, and you deserve to be ruled over. You don't deserve your freedoms. You can't even fight for them. You're not even aware they're being taken away. You don't deserve it. So, just to be real with you. Now, I'll still fight for it, obviously, because I want it, and I believe there are good people who support this channel that deserve it, but let's be honest. The majority of Americans don't deserve any of that stuff. You're fat, lazy, cucked little Goy cowards. So, that's all I've got to say about that. On that wonderful note, I think we'll end the stream. Appreciate all you guys for being here, except for the Goyim. But, even then, the cattle are useful for the signal boosting. So, but otherwise, appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your evening. Glory to America, the best country on earth by far. By the way, before I do that, be sure to not only like the stream, double tap your phone screen, thumbs up button. It is free to do, and it does help encourage YouTube's algorithm to push this show out to more people who need to see this. But also, follow me on Twitter. Let me get you guys the link for that. Go click this link and follow me on Twitter. Follow me there. I post different stuff on there, and I could use the support. When you follow me, like everything I post, retweet it, quote tweet it, everything. Comment on it, everything. Give me the signal boost on Twitter. Twitter seems to be fixing their algorithm again, finally. But, yeah, go follow me on Twitter. I'll post the link one more time. Could really use the support. And, finally, beyond that, check out this video right here. This video explains how we're in this circumstance right now. It explains what happened to Donald Trump over the course of his first and second term, and in between that, what's happening right now, how Trump's being manipulated. It's very important, actually, for context. You should go watch that video, give it the full watch time if you want to support the channel. There's the link to it again. Like the video and leave a comment under it that is on topic with what I'm talking about if you support it. And figure out how to hype the videos, please, like I mentioned earlier. David Cooper's been crushing it for me. One of the best members on this channel. He's been hyping my videos. It's been making a huge difference. Learn how to hype. It's a new YouTube thing. It goes above liking. So hype the video, share it, like it, comment, all the call to actions that everybody hates. Do all of it, though. Serve this channel. Other than that, glory to America, the best country on earth by far. Wouldn't want to live anywhere else, even now. And God bless the USA. May God bless all of you as well. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.